Namaste, Jai Hind and welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. In this edition, ladies and gentlemen, we focus on two important aspects of Bharat's growth story. Two critical aspects that usually will not make prime time debates, but we said no, we must take the right stand and that's why we will. One aspect is to set up what the Union Minister himself says will be a $110 billion plus industry in the next 5 to 7 years. An absolutely brand new vertical hitherto not seen in India. The other, to build an infrastructure, a mandapam, that will become the beacon for bringing in and attracting in, the lighthouse to attract perhaps the biggest of the businesses via conference tourism, MICE, into Bharat. Two big stories, and of course, the latter half will be the reality of what has stoked the fire in Manipur. Is it really a religious, ideological, theological fight, or is it an ethnic one? What's the reality? We will ask the former DG Assam Rifles, Lieutenant General Shaukin Chauhan. But first, ladies and gentlemen, the semiconductor story. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's recent visit to the US led to a crucial agreement between the two nations. They agreed to partner in developing critical technology, the semiconductors, and this technology will help to shape India's growth story. And taking the semiconductor mission ahead, the Prime Minister making all efforts to ensure that India becomes a hub of Semicon and doesn't have to import, but make its own all in India. While addressing the Semicon India 2023 session in Gandhinagar in Gujarat, Prime Minister stated that the world are giants, that Bharat never disappoints and you have only opportunities in the 21st century India. The three-day event showcases India's significant progress in nurturing a global semiconductor manufacturing and design ecosystem. More importantly, key executives from Foxconn, from Micron, from AMD, they were all present along with Vedanta and others, nearly 200 of them, all talking the future of the entire chip manufacturing, hardware manufacturing business, which is an absolutely zero vertical in India. Brilliant move, but how possible is it? How real is it? From ink to implementation. Let's ask the Union Minister, Shri Rajiv Chandrasekhar. He should be joining us any moment now. But in the meantime, what is the government's mission and why there's so much thrust on semiconductors? Make India a semiconductor hub. The aim to attract global companies, especially reduce the dependence on Chinese hegemony on China, boost electronics manufacturing, develop domestic electronics supply chain, emerge as a reliable chip making destination, reduce reliance on imports, especially China. The Modi government is making all possible efforts to make India a global market of semiconductors and has doled out SOPs also. The government has approved modified Semicon India program too, 76,000 crore scheme to boost semiconductor and display manufacturing in the country. Government also announced incentives worth 2.3 lakh crore for companies, and this is to help India as a global electronics and semiconductor manufacturing hub. The government will spend around $1.2 billion to modernize a semiconductor lab in Mohali, a 30-year-old facility currently capable of producing 8-inch CMOS chips or CMOS chip microchip wafers. Also, Micron Technology Inc. for setting up a micro semiconductor temp unit in India with capital investment of $2.7 billion has been approved. Now let's decode the semiconductor market. The global semiconductor market was estimated at $572 billion in 2022, estimated to reach $1.2 trillion by 2030. The Indian semiconductor market is estimated to be $30 billion in 2023 and is expected to reach $59 billion by 2026 and $109 billion by 2030. Let's go straight across to Union Minister of State for Entrepreneurship, Skill Development, Electronics and Technology, Rajiv Chandrasekhar ji. Namaste, Jai Hind. Thank you very, very much. I know it's been a long day and you've got 2 hectic days. Congratulations on your fantastic launch. Your thoughts on day one?
No, I think it was an excellent start to the second edition of the Semicon India conference. And the fact that the Honorable Prime Minister himself came. As you remember, in the first edition in Bengaluru, the Honorable Prime Minister could only join us virtually, but the fact that he came here signifies the importance that he attaches to this momentum of the semiconductor ecosystem that is being built under his leadership. And this was all started because of his vision in December 2021 that India was at the right stage and place to invest in and build this semiconductor ecosystem. And here we are 15 months later, and with such a lot of progress to show to the world and to all Indians, that certainly this first day has been extremely energizing, made even more energizing in a sense by our Prime Minister's presence and his leadership.
But Rajiv ji, a lot of water has flown under the bridge since the first Semicon in 2021. Change has happened in the Micron deal, AMD coming in, policy changes have taken place. They were all there, representatives there. What were there? What was the outlook? Are we moving towards some implementation to all that's been inked?
No, Anand, I think this was best described by our Honorable Prime Minister. He said in the first edition of the Semicon India, people were talking about why invest in India. And in the second edition of Semicon India, the question is, when do we invest in India? And that, in a lot of ways, those two sharply different questions over a span of 15 months tells you how far we have traveled, and it was essentially what was being reflected in the tone, language, thoughts, responses of over 200 companies that have come to the Semicon India and are attending this from over 20 countries, delegates, companies, CEOs, CTOs. And I think this confidence in India, this fact that India is emerging, will emerge as one of the important and trusted partners of the global semiconductor supply chain, value chain, is firmly in a sense echoing or firmly traveling through the corridors and corporate boardrooms of all of these semiconductor companies all around the world, semiconductor thinkers and thought leaders all around the world. So I think that is the marked difference between where we are in 2023 versus where we were in 2022. And I think today people are looking forward to the next project after Micron, the next set of design startups that are going to be supported, the next number of chips that are going to be designed. There's an eagerness today. There was one of the sessions that I attended was all of these top-notch professors from all the institutions in India talking about all the research that is going to be done in semiconductors over the next 3 to 5 years. So the research part, the talent part. So certainly far cry from and a great distance from where we were in 2022.
But Rajiv ji, if I may say so, it's like quite literally setting up an entire vertical from ground up. What's the scope and outlook of this business, and what's the horizon? More importantly, we found raw material reserves in Riyasi, lithium deposits. How far are we from mining it, extracting it and using it?
Anand, the most important thing to realize is that, in the world that we are living in and we will live in the coming years, digital products, electronics products are increasingly going to dominate the way we live, and semiconductors are going to be at the core of all of these products, new and the current products that we are all using and will use in the future. So in a lot of ways, the fact that semiconductor is going to be central to our lives, whether you're a business, whether you're a government, whether you're an individual, is something that is not lost on us and lost on our government. And therefore this focus on semiconductors, and therefore this focus on being a major player and a major presence in the semiconductor value chain. Yes, the semiconductor ecosystem requires complex, as somebody mentioned today morning, it is certainly the most complex and the most challenging engineering science problems, engineering problems that mankind has ever faced. And therefore the complexity of the ecosystem that is required to be built to create this future ready semiconductor ecosystem is also complex. And so therefore, I think whether it's materials, whether it's talent, whether it is logistics networks that are required to deal with and support this ecosystem, all of them are going to be equally complex. But this government, especially under our Prime Minister's leadership, has demonstrated repeatedly our ability to take on difficult challenges and crack them. And that is certainly what we think we will be doing now and in the coming years.
You mentioned more than 200 participants. What's been their response or the buzz around? It's capital intensive in nature, this business. How much of the expectation is on the government? How much is the expectation that India or the government will shoulder the capital liability or the capital investment that is required? Questions have also been raised by the opposition on the entire Micron deal itself, saying it's the government that's doing bulk of the lifting.
No, I don't think. I think that is those who say that don't understand how complex this business is, how complex and competitive this ecosystem is, and how strategically important and vital for India's future, India's young Indians' future in terms of opportunities, how important it is for us to have a semiconductor ecosystem. Most of the people who talk about the semiconductor ecosystem in that way are people who have in a sense presided over the last 70 years of missed opportunities, incompetence and negligence that have caused India to lag behind the rest of the world in semiconductors. And today we are at a position where all of these lost opportunities for the last 65-70 years we are trying to make good for and achieve in the next coming 10 years what larger countries like China have taken 2.5 decades and over $200 billion to try and build and have failed. So we are on a path and on track to build certainly one of the most complex and challenging ecosystems ever dealt with by mankind, which is semiconductors. And I think we are on track. And today, I think to a man and woman who attended, and there were hundreds and thousands of young students who were attending, young academic engineering students who were attending this program on the first day, who all felt so confident and felt so proud that our Prime Minister is finally leading our country in this direction of transforming India into a semiconductor nation.
Well, Rajiv ji, ahead of 2024, you're laying the foundations of this entire vertical in the entire semiconductor industry. So let me ask you, by 2029, how big will this industry become in India? How many jobs will it create?
Look, I can't think that far ahead in terms of the granularity of jobs, but I can certainly share this with you that the semiconductor ecosystem in India would be worth about $110 billion in terms of market size by the year 2029 in very conservative terms. I think that number would be achieved much faster. So therefore, this is not just about complexity and research and strategically important. This is also economically important as we set out on our goal of reaching $300 billion in electronics, becoming a principal player, important player in the electronics value chains, and being a trusted and a major presence in the semiconductor supply chains for the world. So $110 billion of semiconductor economic revenues by the year 2029 is certainly a goal worth working very hard for.
Well, here's to that, and let's hope that it's bigger than what you're actually projecting, Rajiv Chandrasekharji. Always a pleasure speaking with you. One long day gone, 2 more days ahead. All the best with Semicon 2 and the road ahead. Thank you very, very much. Namaste. Now let's try and understand and get the right perspective, ladies and gentlemen, on a very, very significant development. On Wednesday, Prime Minister Narendra Modi performed the inaugural Havan at a redeveloped India Trade Promotion Organization complex in Delhi, which is now the Bharat Mandapam. After the Havan and Pujan in the morning, Prime Minister Narendra Modi returned to the centre for the mega inaugural event later in the evening. The Bharat Mandapam is all set to be India's gateway to glory, as it will also be hosting the G20 event in September this year. Now let's decode and tell you more about this architectural marvel. This complex has been regarded as a well-known exhibition and conference facility and a key venue for large-scale events, trade fairs, conferences and exhibitions. The complex has now become and has been built with a plenary hall where the inaugural session happened, which is perhaps the biggest in the world in terms of capacity, with more than 7,000 people who can be accommodated. It's pillarless end to end, so it's clear, unobstructed view. It's an architectural marvel there. The complex has been instrumental in encouraging India's industrial growth, trade and cultural interchange over the years. But let's take a closer look at the revamped ITPO. Let's look at how it now is in its form as Bharat Mandapam. An area of about 123 acres, built at a cost of 2,700 crore rupees. India's largest MICE, that is meetings, incentives, conferences and exhibitions destination. Not just India's, one of the world's largest. 7 innovative exhibition halls. There is a huge seating capacity of 7,000 people, like I said, which is significantly more than the Sydney Opera House's famed seating capacity of 5,500, and this is in the plenary hall itself. Amphitheatre seating is 3,000 plus. Parking space of over 5,500 vehicles. Design influenced by Shankha or the conch, that's the design. Showcases India's art and culture in every wall, every corner. Joining us now are key important voices from India Inc., the various aspects of the fraternity, who will throw light on what their thought process was and what they were expecting, what they saw and what holds in the future for us, and what this Bharat Mandapam signifies beyond just being perhaps an architectural marvel and a place for MICE, that is meetings, exhibitions, conferences. Let's try and go across to Rajiv Talwar, former CEO of DLF, Nilesh Shah, Member Economic Advisory Council to the Prime Minister and Managing Director of Kotak AMC, Dr. Naresh Trehan, MD Medanta, and Niranjan Hiranandani, Co-Founder and Managing Director of the Hiranandani Group. Namaste and Jai Hind, gentlemen. Thank you very, very much. Mr. Hiranandani, you were there at the launch of the Bharat Mandapam, and PM Modi had said that this is an era of conference tourism. From your point of view, do you see it just as reworking, redevelopment of the physical infrastructure, or is it a solid step towards Bharat's growth story?
I think the India story is big, and the Prime Minister said it all. What did he say? Think big, dream big, act big. And that is exactly what he's working towards. A month ago, I believe, Parliament House was open. Another beautifully done building at a rapid speed to make a difference completely. Looking at all the highways and others which he talked about, and doing almost 35 kilometers of national highway per day. I mean, it's really a kind of any record. He's talked about all the development processes which has happened during his tenure, which has happened. And this, I think, after seeing the place, I was truly impressed. We've seen so many places all over the world. I think this is world class, to say the least. But it's not only about being world class. I think what he has done is to bring about the Indian ethos into the place. The entire thing has Indian culture, Indian art writ over it completely. So every aspect of it is there. Of course, on functionality, it is international best standards. 6,000 people in a room. I believe it can take 7,000, but they had 6,000. You know, the Prime Minister's security, etc., required you a certain distance. So all that and more, which he did, and of course, he walked in splendidly.
There was so much fanfare, wasn't it? But Naresh ji, let me ask you, your first thoughts on the Mandapam, Bharat Mandapam?
Well, it's a magnificent structure, and the hall is really impressive, and the capacity is actually suitable for major conferences. So this is a big step for us, especially in this part of the world, where you have a convention center which is supposed to be possibly the largest in the world. So, you know, it's good timing. G20 around the corner, and not only that, it will be used. I mean, you know, even from the medical field, I can tell you that many times we have to forego international conferences of this variety, where there are few 100,000 members who want to, and some of the members would be 30, 40, 50,000 members would want to attend the big conventions. So I think it's a good, very good addition, and it's a good initiative. And built in record time, so this is quite impressive.
Yes, I'll come back to that record time in just a bit, but let me ask Rajiv Talwarji also. He was there, so what was your first impression as you walked in, Rajiv ji?
I think it's the most magnificent building which has been made in Delhi till now, and for the tourism trade, for MICE, that is meeting incentives, conferences and exhibitions. Yes, India needed new infrastructure, which we've been planning for something like 3 to 4 decades. It's happened today. I think that was a big thing. And of course, the address by the Prime Minister, 5th largest economy, going towards and walking towards, or rather galloping towards, one of the 3 largest economies of the world in the next 5 years. I think nothing could be more better music for the country, for the citizens, and of course for business.
Nilesh, I know you were invited, but due to a personal emergency, you couldn't make it. But your impressions on what you have seen?
Clearly, if we see more Indians are traveling abroad compared to how many foreigners come to visit India, we need to change that equation. How do you bring people to India?
Right.
Obviously, we have great heritage, but there is also a big segment of business traveler. A Bharat Mandapam kind of convention center of global scale and size will help bring business travelers to India.
Correct.
These are the rich travelers. They are the future senior professionals of organization. When they'll come to India and see India and experience India, lot of their perceptions will go away. So Bharat Mandapam is a great way to announce India's entry on the business travel segment.
But Nilesh, Prime Minister has also said that yes, it will boost conference tourism, but we're also ensuring the supply chain. E-conference visas to more than 160 countries. You think that's going to help?
Undoubtedly, we have to lay a red carpet for business traveler. And our models to copy or benchmark are not Western nations, but Eastern nations like Singapore. The whole ease of entry into Singapore, right from visa to traveling to airport to immigration to hotel to roads, is a fantastic experience. We must benchmark ourselves to Singapore standard of being a host, and then I'm sure convention center will take off.
True, but if I can ask you, Rajiv ji, do you think we are ready for a conference hall or a facility like this, or is it a little ahead of its time?
I think it's a few years ahead, and that's what makes the difference. That all the infrastructure which is now coming up, it's not only a catch-up game, it's also a game that, yes, let's see what the future holds. So the facilities over there, the size over there, the scale over there, and the entire utilization of that 123 acres. I think that's what spells that India is getting ready for its rightful role in the world economy and the world geopolitics. So it's I think, along with Kartavya Path, along with the parliament, along with the government buildings coming up, I think, and the management of the economy over the last 3-4 years with the pandemic, I think it spells great news for India, despite all that is going on in the world. That yes, you deserve a larger economy, a larger piece of the cake, and you expect a lot more ease of doing business, ease of living, and a rightful place in the world order.
But Naresh, one of the aspects is that after G20 kya, the medical fraternity has a lot of conferences. You see huge medical conferences happening here at the Bharat Mandapam in the near future?
I mean, there are conferences held in Chicago where there are 10, 12,000 delegates. So India could be the center point now in this part of the world. So these are big conferences which we can host from now. And of course, medical field, whether it is trade, whatever it'll add a big value. I mean, the whole redesigning of Pragati Maidan will make it a very impressive location. And I think this is you can only say it's a big accomplishment in a short period of time because they beat the clock. Which is a nice thing to happen in India.
Niranjan ji, you agree with Naresh Trehan ji?
Of course. See, just look at it. When we have conferences of 1,500, 2,000 people, yes, India still had the capacity to be able to do it, and others, Nirman Bhavan and others.
Right.
In Mumbai also we have. But the conferences of the size of 5,000 plus is, very few places. You have it in Shanghai, you would have it in Australia, you have it in a couple of places all over the world, and very few, Frankfurt. So all this and more clearly indicates that we are now world class, and there is no second to none. Airports, the Delhi airport is expanded. We now have the second airport at Jawar coming in. So I think travel tourism is going to become easier, faster, better. We have done the largest orders of airplanes in the world at 1 month, in 30 days. Some 800, 900 planes, my God. I mean, I can't imagine, the India story, even in the case of aviation.
Yeah.
But let me put it differently. I think he recounted very, very clearly the kind of development process that India has taken place, moving from 9th or 10th in terms of GDP in the world to already 5th place.
Correct.
And expecting in the next couple of years to be, as he put it very sweetly, in my next term, I shall definitely be in 3rd place plus. So that part of it, with the great amount of confidence that he gave, was there. These kind of iconic platforms of this convention center is but a replica. No, not a replica. It's actually a symbol of what India is doing. Because it's not this convention center alone which is important. But in the context of industrialization, development, China +1, logistics which is doing, now we are manufacturing more of Apple phones from India than the whole rest of the world. All that and more, I think, has made a world of a difference in terms of bringing about credibility to what he is talking about. He said, development journey of India is unstoppable now. And of course, he's said it also in the context of the G20 meeting.
Correct.
Where he said, I have not brought them only to the main cities in India. I brought them to 50 cities of India.
Correct.
So the G20 people and different meetings which has taken place has been done in a different way. The date also coincides with the Kargil Victory Day.
Yes.
So, he kind of put across it very, very well that the things are there. And his unstoppable doesn't stop there. He now talks about putting up the largest museum in the entire world. So it's going on.
Yes, it is. And he's promised that he will make Delhi the capital that it should be in terms of design, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of monuments. So people should come here. But let me ask you, Nilesh ji, what do you think of the design? Shankh pe bana hai, conch shell design.
Well, if we see Indian companies, they are now having global ambition. And forget private sector enterprises. A cooperative society like Amul, from being India's largest FMCG company, is aiming to be world's largest FMCG company by 2047.
Right.
Now, whether they'll achieve that dream or not, but at least they are making an honest attempt to reach there. I think this is the change reflecting in India across everything. And Bharat Mandapam is in some sense example or manifestation of that, where Indians' vision is now global scale, global efficiency.
Very well put there, Nilesh ji, but let me ask Naresh Trehan ji, did you expect it to turn out like it did?
I had no idea what we were headed for.
Yeah.
But the sheer size and the overwhelming presence of so many people was very nice. The audio visuals are great. The seating capacity is, of course, great. But even it's so comfortable out there. Although, of course, we were sitting on chairs put in because of we were seated there in the front. So there were some extra chairs put in. But if you look back, you saw the delegates' facilities are magnificent.
True, but Nareshji, since you are sitting in the front row, I have to ask you this. What was the feedback from your peers who were there around and other members of the entire India Inc.? And do you really believe that this will be one of the tent poles of India's growth story in the next 25 years?
So, it signals the soft power of India. It signals that India is on the move. It also signals that we are capable of doing such massive projects in beating the clock and in time. So, some of the doubts that may have existed about India's ability to create such a sort of infrastructure in a short time and keep the deadlines, I think those naysayers or people who had any doubts, they will go away, because India's image overseas now with multiple steps is actually getting traction, which we never got before. So, just the fact that G20 is being held in 60 cities, the different meetings, people from around the world have been able to see other parts of India, which, mostly when G20s happen in other countries, they usually will confine it to just a space in whether they're capitals or whether one or two cities where they may have convention centers. But the very idea of spreading it across the country, people getting a flavor of G20, what it means, is a big thing. So you create. So India has created many other things also. You look at the highways, you look at the infrastructure in the cricket stadium in Ahmedabad, you look at some of the movement on industry, the SMEs have actually buoyed upwards. So these are all very good signals to the world and especially to ourselves. We should be able to create, because we have what we call a demographic dividend of so many people, such a large population. It also creates a huge responsibility to create employment at that level.
True,
because
fair
the
point.
youth is actually very rapidly coming into the job market. So I think all these things will help.
But Rajiv ji, let me ask you, for you, what was the highlight of the Bharat Mandapam?
I think the big thing which stood out was the access and the exit, the number of buildings over there, the scale of those buildings. We were in Hall 14, remember that? And that goes, as a numeral. So there are 14 halls, the kind of infrastructure which is still going to come up, maybe a hotel, will come up, and the number of hotels which are being made ready. It also is a great promise, Anand, that the government is not only committed to reforms and a new system of working, but that system of working has to deliver India and its economy towards, as soon as possible, not only the fifth, the one of the three largest, and therefore will go towards a $10 to $20 trillion economy. Can you imagine, for young people like you, what a change it will make in the new world, and for the new generations coming in, and every bit of that technology. Look at the size of the 7,000 pillarless hall. Everyone right at the back or everywhere listening, visually actually participating in it.
Right.
And every drop of sound, every little sound coming over there. There was a cultural program. So that meant that yes, the stage is ready. And from an orchestra to any event, India is ready to present its case and make presentations in that new venue.
Did you get that sense of pride, Niranjan ji? I may ask you, are you now going to go out to all your friends across the world saying, come do it in India, come to your conference in India, come have a look at this?
I agree with you, Anand. I feel very, very proud of the fact that we have been able to create in a short period of time iconic things that we do. But the businessman is a businessman, Anand. So when he talks about India, he talks about the fact that can I do business in India? Will there be growth in India? Will there be an opportunity to trade with India? Will there be a possibility of investments in terms of manufacturing, trade, and two-way traffic with India? I think businessmen all over the world now believe so. And these iconic buildings and things are testament of all what we can do quickly and fast and effectively. So I think it's going to be very, very useful for creating these structures which will actually stand out. You can't see 35 kilometers of national highway every day. But you can see Bharat mandapam whenever you come to Delhi and visit it. So I think that is the difference which is really going to be important for us to visualize and picturize that look, India is doing so much and more, but here is one of those iconic structures which is ready for you to visit it. And certainly the business people of the world, businessmen of the world, corporates of the world, investors from all over the world are going to look at it positively.
Well, we have to take a break, but I have to ask this question. Nileshji, if I may, final question, is it ahead of its time? I keep coming back to it. Infrastructure, once it's built, must be used constantly. Is India ready for it? Are we going to make good use of it?
Should we allow more Indians to travel abroad? Should we not create tourism sector in our own country?
Yes.
Those people today who are complaining that India is spending on statue or convention center, yesterday were complaining that the small tiny nation of Singapore is developed because they get more tourists than India.
Fair point.
Well, you can't have your cake and eat it too. If India has to arrive on global tourism sector, it has many ingredients. Some of the ingredients we have to build, whether it's Statue of Unity, whether it's Bharat Mandapam, both will attract visitors, first locally and then globally. And Bharat Mandapam kind of thing will put us in business travel. Today, despite so much of awareness and media, there are many global investors whose perception about India is still snake charmers country. When they'll come and visit Bharat Mandapam, they will realize that we are not aliens and snake charmers.
Right.
We are as much human beings as they are. Their confidence in India will go up. Their investments to India will flow. Their ability to, stay invested in India through its ups and downs will multiply manifold. I think these are investments, these are not spending. And without investment, there will never be return on investment.
No, very fairly, very well said. And it had to come from someone like you, that without investment, there will be no return on investment. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Wonderful to hear your perspective. And it's very encouraging because more people need to speak out about what they are seeing when they witness events like this or inauguration of places like the Bharat Mandapam, and people from the industry, voices who matter when they start speaking. I think opinions will also start forming and perceptions will also perhaps will evolve. Thank you so much. Thank you. We're going to take a very, very short break now, ladies and gentlemen. When we come back, we unfold and decode the entire Manipur unrest and why those trying to give it a religious undertone are erring, they are wrong. The former DG Assam Rifles, Lieutenant General Shaukin Chauhan, takes the right stand.
Co-powered by has been speaking on many occasions in the past few days. He has been present in Parliament. He attended some meetings. He actually spoke to the media on the eve of the Parliament session, and he was at a major function in inaugurating a massive convention hall in Pragati Maidan yesterday. So Pradhan Mantri will speak in Parliament whenever he is required to, because there is a no confidence motion that a foolish opposition has already mooted in Parliament, in Lok Sabha, and certainly it is the Prime Minister who will respond who will reply at the end of the debate on no confidence motion. Why are they having any butterflies in the stomach? Let them wait. They will get their stomach full.
Rashid Kidwai, first of all, this red diary was brought to light by one of the Congress's own ministers, somebody who was a minister up until a few weeks ago, Mr. Rajendra Guda, minister in the Ashok Gehlot cabinet. So the Congress needs to fix its house in order before it points fingers at the BJP or at the Prime Minister. And more importantly, he's also turned the tables on the India alliance and coined or come up with this coinage of quit India. Corruption must quit India, dynastic politics must quit India, and a bunch of corrupt parties, according to the Prime Minister, have come together and changed their name. आपके नाम बदलने से काले करतूत बदलते नहीं हैं.
Zaka, my friend G.B.L. Narasimha Rao knows, and perhaps he didn't say this. See, in the Jain Hawala famous the diary case, the court of law said diary is not admissible as evidence. This is very well known, a very high power, high profile case was there. L.K. Advani and several others, they actually suffered politically because P.V. Narasimha Rao had brought in this Jain diary case, and he had implicated a lot of his people of his own party and opposition in 1996, and nothing came out. So the diary has a very poor checkered record. So the Prime Minister to flash a diary, I think it's something that's that reflects rather poorly on somebody who's head of the administration of the country. We know corruption is a very disturbing trend. We also know that. See, when I heard Prime Minister speak, I thought, Zaka, you're playing some speech which was, was there in 2014-13, that time when, he was a Prime Ministerial candidate. It's been 9 years. I don't have to take names, whether it is, Modi or Lalit Modi or Chokse and so many others. What is preventing Prime Minister from, getting this, all the fugitives and economic offenders? Some people say 33, some say 72, whatever number. What is preventing him from acting? What is preventing ED, CBI, if there is a,
No, but Rashid, the problem is the opposition, when ED and CBI act against so-called alleged corrupt leaders, then the opposition says they are being misused. They are being used as instruments. No, one second. You can't have it both ways. On the one side, you say they are being used as instruments to attack the opposition. On the other side, you are saying, why doesn't he use those agencies to get these fellows back?
Is Prime Minister accountable to the country or to constitution or to the opposition? Why? I gave you so many names of this, there's fugitives and all. Why is he not acted against them? What is preventing him? Is it because of opposition that, government is not acting against, Modi or Chokse?
Okay. So, Nalin Mehta, the other point that he made was, and he said this at the start of Parliament as well in the context of Manipur, saying, crimes against women should be unacceptable, whether they happen in Manipur, whether they happen in Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, wherever it is. And today, he reiterated that as well. And Rajasthan, by the way, has the record of being one of the most infamous when it comes to crimes against women. I think the NCRB data is, as of last year, 2022, 40,738 cases of crimes against women. It's the second highest for any state in this country. The opposition is saying that this is a false equivalence. That you can't say just because to divert attention or just to negate or blunt the criticism of what's happened in Manipur, you can't cite Rajasthan, you can't cite Chhattisgarh. Is that a fair criticism?
So Zaka, I think I think politicians will always play politics. I think the fact that there is violence against women in Rajasthan is true. If you look at any North Indian state, you will find similar numbers in comparison relative to other states in India. Are they? Should they be lamented? Are they a matter of shame? Absolutely. Does one wrong make another wrong right? No. Has there been a problem in Manipur? Yes. The difference between Manipur and Rajasthan and others, all of them are wrong. The difference is that in Manipur you've had several weeks, months of violence which the state is struggling to put down. So it's a different magnitude of problem. I think while politics should happen, while politics is perfectly legitimate, the opposition and the BJP are perfectly all right to throw right at each other. But I think one wrong does not make the other wrong right. This water boilery will not lead us anywhere.
About Manipur, the government is stressing that this is essentially an ethnic clash between two groups, between the Kukis and the Meiteis. And Manipur has had, and you've done significant research in these matters, Nalin, that there has been, a number of occasions in the last 70 years, there have been these ethnic clashes, tribal versus non-tribal clashes that have happened in Manipur. Mr. Amit Shah, as Home Minister of the country, was there, I believe, for 3 days back in June. The MOS home, I believe, was there for 20 days straight, right? Welcome back. A lot has been said about the clashes that took place in Manipur. A lot of fake news, propaganda is being spread. But here on the right stand, we decode the Manipur clashes. The clashes are not about religion or community, but a tribal conflict, an ethnic one. At CNN News 18, we try and tell you what the Manipur discord is all about. And as per the government, nearly 150 people have lost their lives and over 500 people were injured in the clashes that took place between two communities, tribal communities, the Kukis and the Meiteis. The government took swift action and arrested 252 people, while 12,740 people were arrested as preventive measures. Since the 18th of July, there have been no deaths as per reports. The ethnic discord in the northeastern region, there is a reason for this. Let's try and understand this. Ever since the Nagas raised the demand for integration of the vast tracts of land inhabited by them in the northeastern region, the Meiteis, fearing takeover of their land, said they are committed to Manipur's territorial integrity, and after that, violent clashes took place early in 2001. The ceasefire deal between the National Socialist Council of Nagaland and the government was also extended. Then came the Kuki-Naga clashes. The reason for the Kuki-Naga conflict was eerily similar to the ones for the present Meitei-Kuki conflict. Way back, the Kukis influxed or entered from Myanmar and started settling down in the northern districts of Manipur and the Ukhrul, Tamenglong and Senapati areas that Nagas consider as their territories. Clashes soon erupted between the Nagas and the Kukis over land. Both Nagas and Meiteis look upon Kukis as outsiders, and both the tribal communities opposed the Kukis' demand for a separate state. The Kuki-Meitei clashes, this is another dimension. The Kukis' uprising also affected the Meiteis. Both the communities, the Kukis and the Meiteis, clashed in 1997 and 98 over land. The Kukis were displaced from the northern district of Manipur and then migrated to Churachandpur in Manipur. Remember, Churachandpur was one of the areas which witnessed violence in large scale in March and April 2023. Way back in 1997, fearing invasion by Kukis, clashed with the Meiteis, and clashes left at least 350 people wounded. Houses and churches of both communities were destroyed. Now coming to the current conflict, the reported large-scale influx of people belonging to the Kuki Chinzo ethnic group from Myanmar into Manipur over the last 2 years has alarmed the Meiteis. The Meiteis feel their migration will create a demographic imbalance. The Kukis now form at least 25% of the state's population, and they feel that the feeling that the Meiteis have is that the Kukis will push their demand for autonomy. Meiteis argue that the Kukis are migrants and not the original inhabitants. So what led to resentment among the Kukis? The two measures by the N. Biren Singh government: eviction of Kuki settlers from lands they were occupying, crackdown on illicit poppy cultivation. A lot has been said about these communities, but who are they? Let's try and tell you a little more about the stakeholders. Kukis, majority migrants from Myanmar, inhabiting the northeastern states, present in all states except Arunachal, form 25% of the population in Manipur. Churachandpur is their stronghold, practice Christianity as their religion. The Meiteis, original inhabitants of Manipur, mainly live in Imphal in the valley region, form 53% of the population in Manipur. Majority of them practice Hinduism, 16% believe in Sanamahi religion, nearly 8% of the Meiteis follow Islam. Nagas, native to northeast India and northwest Myanmar, descended from Tibet and Myanmar, nearly 90% of the Naga are Christian. The Paites are one of the Zo-ethnic tribes migrated to Manipur from Myanmar, also recognized as the scheduled tribe in Manipur, dominant in Churachandpur's Lamka. All ethnic Paites follow Christianity. Let's go across to Lieutenant General Shaukin Chauhan. He's a defense analyst, former DG Assam Rifles, and of course he served in that region. General Chauhan, Namaste, Jai Hind, thank you for your time. The idea is to understand Manipur. There are those who are stoking the Hindu-Christian debate, but there are others like Cardinal from Mumbai who's saying it's an ethnic conflict, not a religious one. What's the truth?
Anand, thank you for calling me to your show. I have actually repeatedly stated this from May onwards, that this is not a religious clash. The two communities, the Kuki community and the Meitei community, are communities that have lived side by side for hundreds of years. And there is within them, both of them, a large amount of suspicion based on shared history, because they were tribal. You know, the tribal histories are histories, and their ability to remember wrongs between each other is very long. If you go to the Naga community, you find the same thing. So, because of this shared history of suspicion, you have these problems that they simply don't trust each other. But I would like to say that there has been a great amount of misinformation, disinformation, a false narrative that is again seeking to increase the walls of suspicion, which, as you are aware, I've been in the Northeast for a very long time. But most recently in 2019, when I was the chairman of the ceasefire monitoring group, I was a member of the board that was actually the Indian delegation that discussed the way ahead with the Burmese delegation in Imphal. And I found that the Kuki community and the Meitei community had started sitting down and talking with each other and talking about the general good of Manipur. That unfortunately has now stopped. And I don't think this clash of 2023 will be forgotten very early. It will take quite some while.
No, that's a fair point. But why did the talk stop? Why did they stop talking to each other? What's the flashpoint?
It's difficult to say what changed. I would go to the point of saying that why things that were this false narrative that started with the creation of it actually started about 5-6 years back, Anand. It started with the idea that the state government controlled the forest, the lands. It started with that narrative that the Kuki community had started increasing the number of villages. And because they were increasing the number of villages, they were encroaching on forest land, which actually belonged to the state. And it started with the political authority declaring some parts of this forest land as sacred to the community, the Meitei community. And from there on started the suspicion that maybe the Meitei community, which is predominant in the political sphere, the number of Meitei MLAs is way beyond the number of Kuki MLAs. Maybe they were seeking to grab this land which maybe belonged to the Kuki. So
but General Chauhan, please allow me to interrupt you, because you will have to give us a background. So the Kukis were coming in from Myanmar. The balance was changing in Manipur, and the original settlers are the Meitei. Bulk of the population is Manipuri. So the Kuki leaders should have also said that we should not oversettle here.
Anand, you're absolutely right. Everything here is a point of concern. But I want to take your mind back to the migration of these tribes over the last 1,000 years. All these tribes belong to the Austro-Tibeto-Burmese lineage. All of them. All of them have migrated over the last 1,000 years. And all of them have made this area their home over the graduated times of the last 10 centuries. Okay. Now, where and who is the original settler is not something we need to really go back to. But the issue is that all these tribes have their antecedents in Burma. The Chins, of which the Kuki, the Chinzo, the Mizo, and the Chinzo are connected tribes. I remember speaking with Mr. Lalthan Haula, the previous Chief Minister of Mizoram, when I was the Director General of the Assam Rifles, and I asked him as to why they were permitting the Chin tribes to seek refuge in Mizoram. And he told me very bluntly, he said, General, they are our brothers. We can't refuse them. our sacred lands, our sacred mountains, our sacred trees lies there. We are of the same tribe. So when the lines came up to divide India and Burma, we divided communities. Similarly, if I don't know if you remember, I was the chairman of the ceasefire monitoring group.
Yes, you were. Yeah.
And during my time, I was negotiating with the NSC and Kaplang group.
Yeah.
Kaplang had just died, and it was now headed by an Indian Konyak called General Khango. So I was talking with Khango and asked him, I said, Khango, you're 80 years old. What are you still fighting about? He said, sir, I'll fight till the last people of my tribe are united. Because there are Konyaks on both sides of the international boundary. So all these tribes, Anand, have communities across.
Correct.
Which is why India and Burma have a 16-kilometer, a free move regime. We have this regime not for any other reason, but for the fact that these communities we know are divided, and we allow them to carry headloads across these 16 kilometers, so as to prevent them from feeling that they've been divided. So this is the greatest problem in any tribal culture, Anand. The thought that they have been divided and their brothers and sisters are across the line. If you take your mind back and extrapolate it to the problem between Pakistan and Afghanistan, and the Durand line, and the division of the Pashtuns, this is similar. So when you talk of illegal migration, when you talk of people coming in, you're talking of a tribe which is actually has both sides. And I remember seeing Rajdeep Sardesai's interview where he quoted some figures, and I have not really gone into whether they were right or wrong, but he said that in 1914-15, the percentage of cookies in Manipur was 14%. Now they are 15.6%. So he said that over the last
but that number is now reportedly gone up to 25%.
So Anand, we're not sure where this truth lies. We're not sure whether there is an illegal migration. And we're not sure whether they are illegal refugees, whether they're taking part in this battle, or whether they're part of a narrative that is incorrect. The main thing is that why are the Meiteis and the Kukis fighting?
Correct.
Why are they suspicious of each other? And why can't we, with the ruling party having 9 Kuki MLAs, why can't the Kukis and the Meiteis live together as we have lived for the last 70 years? Because there has been a problem between the Tangkhul and the Kuki, but not a problem between the Meiteis and the Kukis. So it's amazing how things go actually wrong in the Northeast, because somebody is inflaming these passions. Somebody is inflaming a narrative which is false. And I can't really place my hand as to what is the truth and what is falsehood. And no one can to tell you the truth. The first thing is we have to bring back peace. We have to have peace. We have to return these military-grade weapons that are being held by people.
Right.
And we have to have a Truth and Reconciliation Committee, where the truth and reconciliation must come back to the antecedents of not this conflict, but the antecedents of when the tribes reached here. And the antecedents of who owns these lands, and the antecedents of what kind of part does the state have. As you're aware, Anand, Article 371, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, all deal with tribal cultures of the Northeast.
Correct.
And they are very clear as to what the land laws are of the tribals. In Nagaland, you cannot, in Article 371 Alpha, you cannot touch their land. The tribal lands are tribal lands, they are sacred to the tribe. All tribal lands belong to the village.
Yeah.
Similarly, in the hills of Manipur, the tribal lands have the same laws. So somewhere this suspicion that is there, Anand. And like I said, I am not a historian. I am merely a soldier who has fought there. I'm merely a soldier whose soldiers have shed blood there. But I can only look at two issues: that we must abjure violence. We must have a Truth and Reconciliation Committee, and we must have the truth on the history and the origin of the people who've reached this land.
A fair point, Lieutenant General Shaukin Chauhan. Thank you so much for getting us the right perspective and also brilliantly elucidating what the real situation there is. Let's hope we can find peace and there can be a conflict resolution. With that, we call it a wrap on this edition of The Right Stand. Zaka ready with brass tacks.
Good evening, this is Brass Tacks. I'm Zaka Jacob. Parliament has been washed out for the opening week of the monsoon session over the issue of Manipur. The opposition is insistent that the Prime Minister has to make a statement on the floor of the House, and the government for its part says that the Home Minister, under whom all law and order folds into, is willing to start the debate, take the opposition's tough questions, at least allow the debate to happen. Now, this is in the context of a team of India MPs from the opposition alliance, who will be going to Manipur tomorrow as well as day after. The question then is, Parliament seems to be headed for a washout. The situation on the ground is slowly but surely coming back to a semblance of normalcy.